Hello there! This is a different setting for me, but I thought why not, since I'm gonna talk about the book Tarkin. As some of you might know, I started reading this book about 2 years ago. No, it doesn't take me that long to finish a book. Usually I finish a book in a matter of weeks. But in this case, I struggled to finish it, and I had plenty of time this summer, and I said to myself, you need to finish this. And so I forced myself, I read it, and these are my thoughts about Tarkin. Also, you might notice that this is not my regular content, and it is not, but from now on it will be. I will pivot my content towards books, gaming, figures, toys, collectibles, etc. and etc. Due to the WGA and the SAG-AFTRA strikes, I want to stand in solidarity with both unions, and I believe that writers and actors deserve to have better working conditions. And I know that it's a bummer that I'm not gonna be able to be talking about Ahsoka or any other of the future projects, but this is how it is, and I think it is important for them to demand what they need in order to survive. Being a writer and an actor is not an easy thing to do, and as a person that would like to work in the film industry one day, I completely understand their struggle and I want the best for them. So without further ado, this is what I think about Tarkin. So generally I give it 7, half 7 out of 10. Initially I would say that I did not like this book, but I can say after finishing this that I actually like it, but I found the language in this book quite difficult at times, and I think maybe that's what drove me away from this book the first time, especially when the scene was around a battle or it was a political scene. There were times that I just could not get what the writer was trying to say to me because of the language. And if I tried to Google every unknown word that I had, I would not have finished this book even by now. And it's not like I had the general gist of some words. It's that some words were completely unknown to me. So maybe I think for this particular writer and book, maybe I should have read this in Greek. It would have been way easier for me to comprehend what is going on. But apart from that, I found it very interesting to dive into Tarkin's origins. I'm not gonna lie though, at times I felt really bored reading some of the chapters, so I was just reading it quickly to be done and over with. So yeah, those are the main reasons why I gave it 7, half 7 out of 10. I personally don't like Tarkin at all. And disclaimer here, I'm not referring by any means to the actor's performance, to how the actor portrayed Tarkin. He was perfect, he delivered, he was really, really good at his job. I'm referring Tarkin as a character in Star Wars. And you know what, after reading this book, I have even more reasons to not like him. Like, at all. I have to say though, Tarkin as a character, he's very smart and very cunning, and he is a strategic mastermind, and I can understand why the Emperor had such a preference for Tarkin. And I like that we learn how he was brought up, and he learned some very tough lessons that followed him for the rest of his life and for the rest of the book. But the thing with Tarkin is that even though he was being brought up in tough environments on Eriadu, and he was going every year on the Carrion Plateau with his uncle in like terrible environments and, you know, harsh environments, instead of using all that knowledge for the greater good, he used this knowledge to gain power through the force of fear. What Tarkin learned is that if you can squish somebody, you can absolutely do it just because you can, and just because this is how you gain dominance on everything. His upbringing could have created a very valuable leader for the rebels, but instead it was his attention and hyper focus on superiority and bloodline and rank that made him want to be the better one, the dominant one, the one that survives above all. It's his way or no way. Also, I noticed that another way for him to differentiate himself from the rest was the clothing. Many times in the book, the writer is describing how the others were dressed, and we always get this impression that Tarkin wanted to make himself look different from the rest. And it was his attention to detail that made me think that Tarkin as a character is a very organized and neat person. Also, for me, Tarkin was a person who put the law above everything else, but it was his version of the law, what he thought was fair, and he wouldn't even hesitate to sacrifice even his own men just to get the outcome that he wanted. It was all very black and white for him. I think that's why they were so like-minded with Palpatine. Also, what's very interesting to me is that in this book, we don't get the picture that Tarkin hated the Jedi. Maybe at some points he even respected the ways of the Jedi, especially on a war, he found them as valuable assets at times. And he had formed his own theory about the Emperor and Vader. So he knew that, or suspected is a better phrase, so he suspected that both the Emperor and Vader were both Sith. He never openly phrased his thoughts, because I think in Tarkin's mind, if you are able to dominate on any environment, if you manage to be at the top of the pyramid, then you should be at the top of the pyramid. He never really questioned their power, just because in his mind they were powerful and their values were aligned. I don't know if I'm making sense right now. Also, he was pretty sure about who Vader was based on how Vader was with his stormtroopers. And the rapport that he had built with his stormtroopers reminded him of the way that Anakin Skywalker was with his clone troopers, and that broke my heart. Also, we learned that in a mission, Vader handpicked a clone trooper by the name Sergeant Crest to accompany them in the mission that Tarkin and Vader had on Murkana. And what's interesting to me is that Crest made about 2 mistakes in the mission. Imagine making a mistake in front of Vader. What do you think he would do? Would he forgive you? Would he give you many chances?
I think the fuck not, you trick-ass bitch.
I don't think so. This surgeon made about 2 mistakes, and even though that Vader openly admitted his displeasure with him, he still kept him in his closed group on the mission, and he even gave him a promotion and made him a lieutenant after the mission on Murkana ended. That sets the argument aside on whether Anakin and Vader were 2 different people. Anakin and Vader are the same person, and that's that. To me, Vader appreciated having fought in a different time with the same soldiers. He appreciated that familiarity with the clone troopers. And even though that he wants to forget everything about Anakin Skywalker and everything that defined Anakin Skywalker, he still prefers clone troopers on missions. That's just sad. And I don't think that if a regular stormtrooper made the same amount of mistakes on a mission, that Vader would have kept them and gave them a promotion. Probably he would have killed them as well. And also, Palpatine made an observation. Tarkin and Vader were not really, liking each other. So Palpatine suspected that Vader did not really like Tarkin due to the latter's stance years back in the Clone Wars, when the court was voting against Ahsoka for the charges of murder. Obviously, she was innocent, but Tarkin was one of the people who believed that Ahsoka should be prosecuted. And that makes me want to cry. The fact that he still felt even a little bit overprotective over his old Padawan, kill me now. Also, what's another interesting fact about this book is we learn the true vision that Palpatine had for the galaxy and for his plans. A penthouse in an elite building, a position that opened doors anywhere in the core, collections of priceless art, the finest foods, the most able servants. He never had need for any of it. Even when a senator, even when Supreme Chancellor, and had subscribed to luxury only to satisfy juvenile fantasies, and of course because it was expected of him. Now he had only the dark side to answer to, and the dark side had an appetite for extravagance of a different sort. Later on he adds, but he would deal with any who chose to challenge him with the same precision he had applied to exterminating the Jedi. And he would not allow himself to be sidetracked from his goal of unlocking the secrets many of the Sith Masters before him had sought. The means to harness the powers of the dark side to reshape reality itself. In effect, to fashion a universe of his own creation. Not mere immortality of the sort Plagueis had lasted after, but influence of the ultimate sort. As his empire swelled, bringing more and more of the outer systems into its fold, so too would his power unfurl, until every being in the galaxy was held captive in his dark embrace. So basically, Palpatine wanted his own thought, his own words, his own actions to be cloned on every single being in the galaxy. He did not want diversity, he just wanted himself multiplied by trillions. He wanted the ultimate dominance. Tarkin is presented as this very clever man, but are you that really clever? If you acquire so much power and you still use it to produce fear on people and dominate, is that really clever if you use your power and knowledge that way? If you think that you are really doing good in the galaxy? I think that's like, in his own cleverness and mastermindness, he was pretty dumb. And I think that was the fatal flaw of Tarkin. Yeah, generally those are my thoughts about this book. I like the story. I like the small plot twist that we have in the end of the story. But this man continues to irk me. Many times in this book I felt like I would vomit in my own mouth. Later on I'm gonna give all the times that Tarkin gave me the ick. And it's pretty safe to say that after reading this book, I dislike Tarkin even more. Tarkin, Palpatine, Mas Amedda, Ponkrell are very high on my imaginary list, on my imaginary burn book. And there they will stay. So first of all, the first ick right there that I have for Tarkin is that he was racist, okay? And you can tell throughout the whole book that he wants to differentiate himself from the rest because he's the better one. He has the best experience in everything. And not directly, but he doesn't really like non-human beings. He doesn't directly say it, he doesn't directly admit it, but he is racist, okay? Let's just say that. Listen to this. It may appear to some that the enactment of universal laws and the widespread deployment of a heavily armed military as steps toward galactic domination, but it's not, guys, you have it all wrong. Like, we don't want to dominate you, okay? We love you. But these actions are taken merely to protect us from those who would invade, enslave, exploit, or foment political dissent, and to punish accordingly any who engage in such acts. You sound like the type who would exploit and, like, take advantage of people. Like, it sounds quite, rightish to me, Tarkin. It really does. After he got promotion, basically, these are some of the things that he did. These are some of the things that he changed as a Grand Moff Tarkin. Okay, And to the dismay of countless beings in systems along the supply routes, he limited the holonet to Imperial use. He cancelled internet. Leaves were cancelled and communications of any sort were strictly monitored. I wouldn't like him as my boss, like to tell me that my holidays and my leave is cancelled. Who are you? He had a personal bodyguard of 32 stormtroopers. Who are you, Whitney Houston? Who accompanied him wherever he went, or at least when he allowed us match. You're not that important, chill. And then the writer let us know that Tarkin went back to Eriadu, to his home planet, to go on the Carrion Plateau again. And he ascended the Carrion Spike, okay? He even wore clothes of the sort he would have worn in those days, more suited to a hunter or trekker than to an Imperial Grand Moff. I bet he looked like a scout boy, okay? I cannot imagine him with a backpack and like, you know, hiking shoes. He had been accused by lovers and others of being heartless. But it wasn't true. It was simply that his heart was here, in this pristine part of his home world. You tell me he had lovers? Man, chill. Like, chill. And then the writer describes his ascending to the Carrion Spike. Arrived at the hill, he began to pick his way up over the pitted rocks, leaping over crevices and finding finger and toe holds as he bouldered to the summit. The athletic man you are, Tarkin. But the biggest ick it has given me is this. So after they captured the team who hijacked the Carrion Spike ship, he talks to Honora, one of the shipjackers, who had previously described as attractive. So Tarkin had found that woman attractive, okay? And after basically she showed him the middle finger, this is what Tarkin said to her. So much venom from such a lovely mouth. So much venom from such a lovely mouth? She's at least 20 years younger than you. What are you doing? He's irksome. I don't know how to explain it, man. He's irksome. Yeah, and these are some of the reasons that I don't like Tarkin. So, yeah, those were my thoughts about Tarkin. I found it very interesting to dig into his origins and understand the man better. I still hate him, but hey, that's the beauty of art. Yeah, what did you think about this book if you have read it? Comment below. Until next time, may the force be with you.